Good evening, everyone. It's 5:30, so we're going to get started. My name is Malini Sims. I'm a principal planner with the town. I, along with some other staff members, are joining tonight to support your group and really learn from you this evening. But first and foremost, we want to allow everybody to get to know each other. So to help us with introductions tonight, I'm going to launch a quick poll. So you should see it pop up on your screen if you'd please respond to it. All right, thank you, everyone. Share the results for you so you can see. All right, so before we get into introductions, I do see there's a hand raised for a question on the phone ending in 1957, if you want to unmute yourself. You may have to press star 6 to unmute. All right, well, not hearing that.
I'm just letting you know that I'm on the phone instead of on in the video.
Great, thank you. We'll make sure you're able to participate as well tonight. Appreciate it. Well, I appreciate everybody joining tonight. Like I said, we first want to go through introductions, and since we have a pretty good sized group to help us not step over each other, that poll really helped. So I want to ask anyone who chose driving as their preferred method of transportation, if you'd please unmute yourself and tell us your name. If you start speaking as somebody else does, please just yield and let each other go. We will make it through everyone tonight. So whoever chose driving, if you'd please unmute and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Randy Coe.
Okay, I'm Tony Kane. I do want more information than that. I've lived here for 20 years. I'm a Chicagoan. My husband recently died, and I'm indecisive of whether I'm going to stay here or go back to Illinois.
All right. Stephanie, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah. I'm Stephanie, and I've lived in Oro Valley for almost 10 years. I unfortunately just lost my husband a couple months ago. And so I'm, you said, why did I indicate driving? Because it's just like to get to the grocery store and stuff. It's just, well, for one thing, right now I'm getting ready to have knee replacement. So on one of my knees. So I don't live that far from the Fries, but right now it's just too far to walk. So.
Well, our condolences, Stephanie, and hopefully your surgery goes well. And then Randy, I know you were trying to introduce yourself earlier, so if you want to go ahead.
Hi, Randy Coe. I've been here for, gosh, all over 11 years now, and moved here from Wisconsin, but have lived all over the country. So glad to be here.
Great. Mike, looks like you're unmuted.
Yep. Let's see, I've lived here 31 years. I've moved north from Tucson to Oro Valley. I've really seen it grow, and I'd, like to see some different growth. Thanks.
Let's see. David?
My name is David Ketchum. My wife and I lived here for 5 years now. We moved here from Whidbey Island in Northwest Washington. And we like it very much. We're very pleased to be here, and I'm very happy to be a part of this group. Thank you. Thanks, Melanie.
Let's see, Elizabeth Robb.
Hi, Elizabeth Robb, 26 years here, new council member, and I actually prefer horseback riding, but driving is more practical.
Yeah. All right, Sandy Wilson.
Hi, Sandy Wilson. I've been here 9 years. And David Ketchum, I have to say, Coopville is one of my favorite places in the world. I try to get up there every year, but yeah, so I've been here 9 years and moved from, well, I've been all up and down the West Coast.
Hey, Joe?
Jill?
Yeah.
Oh,
Melanie,
either one.
oh, is it me or someone else?
Go
Sorry.
for it.
Okay, well, Joe Nichols, I picked driving because it's more practical, like someone else just mentioned, but frankly, I'd rather ride my bike. And I appreciate the good work that's being done to make more bike paths, and I think we can still do more in that area.
And then Jill?
I'm Jill Thoman, and I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and I went to the U of A in college, lived in Denver for a few years, and then moved back here. So I've kind of been all over, and I prefer driving, although I do like to walk too.
Great. Let's see, Andrew.
Hello, my wife and I moved here 10 years ago, and I probably drive 40 miles a day. And we love Oro Valley. It's wonderful, and we're very excited about what this concept of this meeting might bring for our future. Thank you.
The Mark Howe.
Hi, I'm moved here 2 years ago from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and you guys don't know how nice the roads here are by comparison. So I'm very pleased with the road system we have here, and look forward to helping keep that going.
Great. Brian.
Oh, yeah, my name is Brian Hind. I've lived in, well, both Tucson, Catalina, and Oro Valley for over 25 years. I'm originally from Cleveland. And yeah, we mainly in Oro Valley, I think if you don't drive, you don't really have that much, a choice because of your the main intersections that that the bus routes follow. So I'd be interested in seeing how we can improve that for the future.
Great. Let's see. Robert.
Good evening. I'm Robert Sabo. I've been around Oro Valley since 2018. Me and my wife live over by the CDO High School. And I have my real estate license, and I'm just became an associate broker here. So I do look forward to finding out some more information tonight about the roads around Oro Valley.
Great. And Cheryl.
Hi, I'm Cheryl. I also am from Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, and I moved here in 2006. So in March, it'll be 19 years here for me. And I pretty much got involved going to all the council meetings and different things like that back in 2011. So I've been involved quite a bit since then.
All right. Okay, who chose walking? If your preferred method of transportation is walking, please unmute yourself. And let's see, it looks like Hal.
Hi, Melanie. Well, first of all, I've lived here with my wife since 2018, so we're going on 7 years. And I walk daily for half an hour, 45 minutes for exercise. And, it's a pretty good area to walk, not a lot of traffic. So it's a good way to maintain your health. Of course, I do drive. If you really want to go any distance in Oro Valley, you have to drive.
Great. Akmaral, and I apologize if I didn't pronunciate that correctly.
No, it's good. My name is Akmaral Mukan. I've been living in Oro Valley for the past 17 years. Before that, 2 years I lived in Tucson. Originally, I'm from Kazakhstan. So before I lived in Tucson, I lived in Kazakhstan. I went to U of A here. So I said that my preferred mode of transportation is walking. I would love to be able to walk everywhere, to take my kids to school, to go shopping, to get coffee, for example. But really, there's like the connectivity issue is the the pedestrian walkways and paths are not really connected. So I drive everywhere. So, but I would love to see more walking, safe walking path for pedestrians.
Sure, and we'll definitely be discussing some of that tonight. Let's see, Sue.
Hi, I'm Sue Allen, and I grew up in Port Townsend, Washington, so the people from Whidbey Island probably have heard of that. I do love to walk, and I find that mostly what I do now is I hike. I hike in the mountains around here, so.
Great. Janet.
Hi, I'm Janet Christopher. I moved here in 2020 from Kansas City, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and then in DC. And I prefer to walk everywhere. I love walking everywhere. But again, you do have to drive here. Otherwise, you wouldn't, you'd be a little stunted. But anyways, I think it's a great place to walk. And we'll see how much more we can contribute to that.
Great. Let's see. And Mayor Joe.
Yeah, thank you. Right, I chose walking. My wife and I walk about 3 to 5 miles a day. We live off of Palisades, and I'd like to think that we're in a pretty sweet spot because it takes about 20 minutes for us to walk to Fry's, similar to Safeway, the marketplace, plus a variety of trails and paths. So I have to admit, I feel like I live in a bit of heaven.
Great. And then Rob. Oh, if you want to unmute yourself. Here, Rob, let me see. There you go.
Okay, sorry. So my wife and I moved here about 4 years ago, and we moved from Sammamish, so we know all about Port Townsend, by the way. I lived up in Seattle my whole life. But we walk and we ride bikes and stuff like that. And the one thing that I've noticed is that you can walk across the roads and the sidewalk safely if you're paying attention. But if you're not paying attention, you have to be really, really cautious of people that run through the intersection. And you don't get a second chance to recover from that. So that's one thing I thought about when I signed up for this thing, that we could certainly talk that a little bit further.
Great. All right. I think that's everybody who chose. Oh, Leah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leah Payne. I was actually born and raised in Oro Valley, and I originally put driving as my main form of transportation. However, I'm still in high school, so I feel that even though I drive to school, I'm walking like 90% of my day to classes. So yeah, I think I changed my answer to walking. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you for being here. Let's see. Okay, so if you chose biking, if you now unmute yourselves, please. All right. Let's see. Tom.
Yeah, I'm Tom Gribb. My wife and I moved here in 2002. And one of the things that attracted us was the bicycle friendliness of Oro Valley even 22 years ago. And it's gotten increasingly better. Soon after we moved here, we bought our first tandem, and we love it. Unfortunately, her knees are not what they used to be. So the tandem has collected more dust than not. But that's always been my favorite mode of transportation. Obviously, I drive more than I bike, but given a choice, I'd always rather bike.
Great. All right, Vice Mayor Barrett.
Yes, my name's Melanie Barrett, and I am a council member. Some of you I've met, and it's great to see you. And those who I haven't met, I'm really excited to get to know you a little bit and meet you more. I chose biking because even though I'm in the car a lot, taxiing my children to their various activities, I feel the most joy when I'm riding my bicycle around Oro Valley, especially my e-bike. And I have an e-bike that my youngest child can ride on behind me, and we have a good time enjoying Oro Valley together as a family on that.
All right. Anyone else choose biking as their preferred method? Please go ahead and unmute and introduce yourself. All right, we're gonna go to horseback riding. Anybody's preferred method, horseback riding, whether it's feasible or not. Go ahead and unmute and you can introduce yourself. Or I know there was one person who chose flying, so please definitely unmute. Yeah.
That was myself. Hi, everyone. Mike Smeckel. It was a little self-serving. So I'm a civil engineer and I do airport development work. So I spend a lot of time at airports. I used to work down in Tucson, but now I'm back on the consulting side. So, but anyway, yeah, I've been in Oro Valley for 13 years with my wife and 3 kids. One of them's out of the house now. One will be out of the house this summer. So got one more still in the house here in another 6 months. But yeah, avid runner. So I think I've run every mile of path through town. I'm an occasional transit user down to taking the express bus downtown. So yeah, I think I've used every form of transportation except for horseback. I've not done any horseback riding.
All right. And David, did you have a question? You have your hand raised. If you would unmute yourself, please. David, if you'd unmute yourself, please.
I'm sorry, I thought I did that. I just wanted to connect up with Mike at some point. I was an airport planner for 30 years, and I've been full-time for many years now doing designing heliports for hospitals. So, we ought to talk sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Melody.
Yeah. All right. So if anybody was coming in as we were doing introductions, that's what we're doing right now. So if you didn't have a chance to introduce yourself, please unmute. Michael, if you want to go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Michael Bilodeau. I've lived in Oro Valley for about 7 years, and I picked walking as my preferred one. But of course, my wife and I, we mainly work downtown, went to the U of A for the last 2 years. But that's why we picked Oro Valley, is that when we come home, we have so many opportunities to walk here. Love the trails, love the access to all the different mountains. We briefly looked at moving into Tucson to be closer to work and school. Nope, we prefer to be out here. We like the quiet. We like the ability to have sidewalks and trails all around us.
Great, thank you. Emma?
Hi, my name is Emma Kim. I'm a member of the Youth Advisory Council. I chose driving, but technically I don't drive. My mom and my dad drives. So I'm just a passenger princess for now. But yeah, definitely like the driving around here. One thing that I want to talk about was just like the quality of the public art when I get the chance to. So yeah, definitely want to talk about that later.
Great, thank you. And Gail?
Hi, I'm Gail Lopez. We bought our first property here in 2006 and moved here full time in 2018 upon retirement. My preferred mode of transportation, I guess, I don't know, I would say my most frequent mode of transportation is driving. I like to walk, but mostly driving.
Great, thank you. Kim?
Hi, this is Kim Ryan. I'm a native Arizona and I've been in Tucson for about 30 years. I've been in Oro Valley for 12 years. I chose driving as my primary mode. I commute to work and I have 2 teenagers, so getting them from here to there. I spend more time in my vehicle than I care to admit. And what's up, Mike?
I was going to say, Kim, how come you didn't pick airports or flying?
All right, and then we have Robin.
Hi, I'm Robin. I've been here for 25 years. My most common form of transportation is driving. I really love walking. And Emma, when you were talking about your folks driving and you guys talking about getting licenses, I mean, I lived in Tucson proper for a while, and I was so grateful that we had moved here before our children got their driver's license, because this was such an easier place to teach kids how to drive than Tucson proper.
Very nice. All right, is that everyone? If you haven't had a chance to introduce yourself, please go ahead and unmute and feel free to go ahead and introduce.
Hi, I'm John.
moved here 14 years ago. And my concern with bike paths and car streets is stop signs seem to be a suggestion more than followed. So that's one of my concerns.
Great. And then lastly, I think on the phone, 1957, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Moulton. I joined this group. I've been in Oro Valley for many, many, many years, and I joined this group to try to make some positive changes that I've unfortunately witnessed living in Oro Valley as long as I have. And yeah, that's what I'm here for.
Great. Thank you, Cheryl. All right, so quickly, I'd like to ask the staff that's online to also introduce themselves. So we'll start with Renee.
Hello, everybody. My name's Renee Olvera, senior planner with the town of Oro Valley. I love cycling, but I do drive a lot. So it's kind of a mixture between both, but I'm really excited to hear all of your ideas and excited to get to know all of you.
Thank you. Buyer.
Hey everyone, Buyer Vella, Town Planning Manager. I've been commuting by bicycle to Oro Valley along La Cañada and whatnot for the last 25 years. And thankfully, I survived the first decade when it was 2-lane without any bike lanes. So I'm not sure. I'm thankful for that. I'm kind of surprised I did. That was a little scary. So super thankful for the bike lanes and the infrastructure that Oro Valley has. And I want to just give a shout out that so appreciative of all of you joining into this. It's a work effort. It's a big lift that, we're asking you guys to build your plan. But I am so pleased. I'm watching it now. Folks smiling, saying hi to each other, remembering that we're allowed to have fun along the way. So great to, our role really is to help you guys get where you want to go. So thank you for letting us help facilitate and bring you along the way.
Thank you, Buyer. And Paul.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paul Kiesler. I'm your Public Works Director, Town Engineer, Floodplain Administrator. Been with the town almost 20 years, lived in the town for 19 years. So I'm so pleased to see so many people have interest in our area, particularly in the transportation, road network, transit. It's really really enlightening to see all the comments and all the folks who have interest in this. So thank you for all of your help.
All right, thank you all. And like Buyer said, thanks for taking the time to go through the introductions. It is really important, and we want to get to know each of you. I have a couple things to go over before we jump into our discussion tonight. It will be quick. So just give me one moment while I get the screen shared. So again, the purpose for tonight is to gather additional guidance and ideas related to what we heard last year of what residents are prioritizing for Oro Valley's future. So the discussion questions that we posed online, as well as the ones that we're going to discuss and go through this evening, they were really areas that needed additional guidance and understanding to make sure that the 10-year plan represents you as residents. Now, the guidance provided last year will be kind of combined with the legal requirements, as well as the feedback you give us this evening and throughout your rest of your meetings to really help form those goals, policies, and implementation actions. The goals, policies, and actions we will be presenting back to your group for further discussion, review, and refinement as well. Just go back for a minute. So we do appreciate everyone who completed their homework online. You guys did an amazing job at that, as well as completing the RSVP. Your responses to both the homework and RSVP really set the agenda for tonight. But since we have a moderately sized group, and the majority of folks were interested in talking about either traffic flow and safety or bicycle and pedestrian safety, we're not going to break out into smaller groups tonight. Instead, we're all going to stay together to discuss each topic. Again, the order is based on your responses to the discussion questions as well as the RSVP. So for tonight, we're going to start with talking about Oro Valley Street Network. This includes traffic flow and safety, especially with intersection safety. We're then going to talk about street design and safety for pedestrians and cyclists. And then we'll wrap up with road maintenance and landscaping and public transportation. Now, I do want to say that I don't anticipate that we're going to get through all 4 topics this evening. So we will, whatever we don't get through this evening, we'll talk through in 2 weeks at your February 20th meeting. Our aim is to be efficient, but we also want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to discuss the comments they want to, as well as making sure we get all of your ideas on the board before we leave tonight. So for those of you who participated in the kickoff event, you are probably familiar with the Zoom whiteboard. We are going to be using that a lot tonight. So one thing I wanted to follow up on with folks is when I share the whiteboard, if you're not able to see the sticky notes or the comments, you can always adjust your view, and your adjustment won't affect anybody else's view. So to do this, in the lower right-hand corner, you'll want to look for the navigation menu. It looks like what's shown in the video of that's circled in a red box. You can use Fit to Screen, and that will automatically bring everything closer, and then you can use the zoom to make the font bigger or smaller. You can also use the hand icon to move around the screen. So again, if anybody's having problems with that as we go on tonight, please let me know, but that's the best way to get your view adjusted. And then lastly, before we start discussions, I do want to remind folks of the ground rules that were accepted during the online kickoff event. Also, just to kind of discuss who enforces the rules, right? Really, it's everybody. I, as your facilitator, I'm going to do my best to remind folks of the ground rules, but I need everyone's help to make sure that the meeting this evening is efficient and productive. And so with that, let's get started. I'm going to share your comments. So again, for those of you who added your comments online, they've already been added to the whiteboard, but let's first start off with what we heard from residents over the past year. All right, so I'm now sharing my board. You should be able to see it. If it's too small, again, use that navigation menu to adjust your view. So related to traffic flow, what we heard last year was there about 18% of residents who responded to the survey, they did have concerns about traffic. And for those of you who are grabbing the board, if you would try to just only touch the, oops. All right, just one moment. If you could try to refrain from grabbing the things on the screen and only the navigation menu. That way it won't affect anybody else's view. All right. So what we heard last year was there were concerns about traffic. About 18% of the concerns 18% of open-ended responses were related to traffic, specifically about managing traffic flow, the traffic congestion, having too much traffic and traffic as the town continues to grow. There were also some suggestions related to how traffic can be improved, and this related to the volume of traffic, also traffic along the weekends, as well as along commuter routes and major arterials going north and south into town, as well as traffic light timing. We also asked a question on the survey with regard to reducing dependency on vehicles, and 51% prioritized that as a high priority, specifically to reduce the distance between shopping, employment, and housing areas. Again, 18% when we asked, what do you dislike the most about Oro Valley? 18% responded that it was the distance to and lack of services and amenities. So what happened last year is this information was used to draft guiding principles. So that's what's shown in the orange boxes. And again, these are in draft form because as your group continues to work through that additional guidance, these may be refined even further after these discussions. And that translated into making sure we're maintaining good roads, managing traffic flow, and encouraging a variety of transportation options. And then the second guiding principle is reducing vehicle miles traveled between housing, shopping, and employment areas. And what you can see on here is there's a lot of repetition, and that was purposeful. So with the drafting of the guiding principles, every effort was used to use the wording that residents provided through their surveys and their responses at events online. So with that, I want to ask you all, I know many of you read through the information posted online. So was there anything that stood out from resident responses related to traffic flow that you want to point out? And if you have a response, you can now click on a sticky note and type it in. You can also put it in the chat and Renee will scribe it for you. And you can also, raise your hand if you just want, and we can definitely have a discussion. So Michael?
So one of the things that I noticed is when on the question of one thing people would change, there's actually one that's higher than traffic, and that's nothing. That people didn't identify something. Twice as many people said nothing than said traffic. And someone else had mentioned this earlier in the call. I've lived in probably 12 cities myself. Traffic here is fantastic. And when I go back to Boston or Seattle, or even back to my hometown of Edmonton, Alberta, that's traffic. We don't have traffic. I was so scared when they closed more in La Canada there and were routing us through the neighborhood because I had to commute downtown. And I'm like, this is going to add 15, 20 minutes to my half an hour commute downtown, and I'm on the northwest side of town. That's a really nice commute. It added 1 minute to go through that neighborhood. And so I definitely get it. I was stuck in traffic today a little bit. It can always be better. But that's one thing I want to show appreciation that if we can maintain what we have as we continue to grow, I'm very happy. And so that's one thing that I noticed. I was glad to see that in the discussion that the town is doing a great job.
Okay, and Rob?
So I don't want to say anything that anybody gets mad about, but I'm going to say this anyway. In the last 4 years, doing a lot, my wife and I have Pedego bikes and regular bikes, and we walk and drive and everything. When we go out on First and Tangerine and down on Oracle, one of the biggest things, and it doesn't seem like maybe this is unresolvable, but the speed that people travel in cars and the fact that, and I don't want to get mad at anybody for saying this, but I'm going to say it, and then people get in within 2-3 feet of somebody's bumper. That's how people run into each other, and that's not safe for pedestrians or bicyclists because people are flying through the intersections. And I don't know of anything. I know what they did in Seattle where I came from is they started just putting those cameras up there. So if you went through or ran a red light or sped through, you got a ticket. And you could either go to mediate it, or if you weren't anywhere near it, you just said, I'll send in the payment, you know. But because we may or may not have enough enforcement to enforce speeding and, you know, kind of negligent driving and stuff like that, to me, that's one of the biggest issues with walking and going across the sidewalks and riding your bike down the street. And then you got to go over to the trail. And, you know, if you're not paying attention, as like I was saying before, it wouldn't be safe if you didn't make sure that everybody had stopped. I just wanted to say that because I see it every day and I find it, and I agree with Michael, traffic is non-existent here compared to where I used to live.
And we did hear in the comments at events and online, we definitely heard comments about, traffic safety related to speeders and stoplight runners and things like that as well. Before, though, we get to ideas and additional kind of context, is there anything else that stood out for you from what residents said over the past year? Janet.
So specifically in addressing the traffic issue, to me, it seems like it's most interdependent upon the development. And what kind of spurred my interest in getting involved in this is because I saw what, that proposed development next to the Safeway, and that the traffic and the horrible snafu that would cause. And it alarmed me, honestly, that such a plan got as far as it did. So I think that it has to be kind of, to make plans on transportation, we really need to see what the city's plans are for development, because it's directly relational to that.
Yeah, so great points. And Janet, definitely part of this group. In April, we'll be looking at the land use map. And that kind of is showing what how the community sees the town being built out, and what type of uses they see going where. Stephanie. Well, I don't know if, Joe.
Yeah, I would just like to comment on the the sequencing of lights on Oracle. I think on La Cañada as well. And I know we have the city engineer on. Are the lights on La Cañada sequenced at all? I mean, I often drive that during commute hour, either in the morning or the afternoon. And mostly in the afternoon, I don't find it's very well sequenced, but it could be because the other crossing streets. I don't know. Do we give priority to like La Cañada?
Sure. So maybe before we answer that question, sorry, I do want to get to that question. I have it written down.
Okay,
We have an opportunity to talk about light timing here in a moment. So I see a lot of hands raised. If you're raising your hand because you want to point out something that we heard last year, please feel free to unmute. But if you're raising your hand to talk more about some of the additional context you want to give, if you'll hold that for one moment. Okay, McKenna.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm in the car, so I want to make sure you can hear me before I get started.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. Sorry, I'm driving home after work, and so I wanted to be here, but wanted to double check. One of the things in the comments that I noticed, and I think I reflected on a little bit, as it relates to traffic and usage, was discussion of the multi-use paths and how cyclists can use those. I thought that it was definitely noteworthy that folks had mentioned about various paths and things along those lines, ways that we could increase path usage. And I think that is definitely something great that we can look at. I think as Oro Valley is looking to expand or grow, that being able to have both access to cars like people had mentioned and also to those paths are great. So I think that it's great that was brought up, and great that that's definitely still a priority for Oro Valley, and something that I think is definitely important as we talk about consensus, to make sure that, yeah, we're definitely remembering to include multiple types of those transportations, so that cycling and cars and all that good stuff all in one, I think is a really great to hear that most of the residents in Oro Valley are looking for that.
Great, thank you. All right, so before we move off of what we heard last year from residents, I do want to point out that when I talk about the survey results and what that really means. So the survey was conducted via phone, as well as there was opportunity for people to respond via paper as well as online. And the reason I point out the phone survey is because that's statistically projectable to all Oro Valley residents. So 18% may look like a low number, but when there's, over 40,000 Oro Valley adults, you have to factor that in, as well as open-ended. That was to an open-ended question. So the fact that 18% of people who could have said anything all said similar things, that's what makes it more significant. Similar with the 51%. That really represents almost 30,000 residents. Sorry, not that many, but that represents 51% of Oro Valley adults who prioritize that as a high level. And why I'm bringing this up and why it's so important is, as a working group, your charge is to definitely provide additional guidance, and there's definitely areas where it's not clear of what the survey responses meant. That's why we're coming to you to get that guidance and get those ideas. But ultimately, the plan needs to honor and reflect what the majority of residents said over the last year. Okay, so before we get into the discussion, I also just quickly want to run through some background information about our street network. So the map on the screen just shows Oro Valley Street Network, and just want to let folks know that, the roadways, they definitely have a hierarchy to them, and our arterials, they generally have high mobility but a low degree of access, and whereas you go further down the line, you get to locals. Those have lower mobility but a high degree of access. So your local roads, if you think about it, are the ones that are in your neighborhoods and in your subdivisions. So lots of access points, but not as much mobility. And then kind of in the middle of that is our collector streets. And that's kind of where you're balancing the mobility and access. So when we talk about the roadways and having more access to them and the traffic flow, just keep that in mind. And I can always bring this back up as needed. We're also going to be talking a little bit about road capacity. There's a lot of information on this screen. I'm not going to go through it all. I think we can all agree that traffic volume has increased over the last 10 years. But the purpose of this image is really to show that, oops. Let me grab it. That road capacity on most of our major roadways is at about, right now, there we go, is roughly around 55% or lower. So this is to show that the average of capacity volume is there. We do have capacity on our roadways, but that doesn't mean improvements aren't needed. And again, this is an average capacity. I do know that most of the comments were focused at peak times in the mornings or evenings as people are leaving and coming into Oro Valley.
Malini, we're not seeing what you're looking at or describing.
Okay, so Jody, do you see the whiteboard?
Yep.
So if you go to the lower right-hand corner,
Yep.
If you click on the arrow and choose Fit to Screen, it should help you see it. It should adjust your view.
Yeah, no, we're not seeing the numbers and the percentages. We're seeing the resident direction from phase 1.
All right.
So I'm seeing it.
I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it, the percentages and the maps.
Interesting. Okay.
Jody, I think you have to hit rejoin at the top. I had to do that. There's a rejoin button.
Ah, thank you. We'll try that. Yep. All good. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Or Mike, my apologies. Okay, so let's get into the conversation. The first question, like I said, if you responded online, your comments are already added, and we did start categorizing them to help the flow of the discussion. So the first question was, I don't know where that went. There we go. Are there roads that need to be widened? And Joe, we will still come back to your question about the lights on La Cañada. So I am going to start on the left-hand column. It's the column that has a orange Post-it note with a triangle symbol. So I'm zooming in on my screen. If you need to, though, you may have to, again, adjust your view, do the Fit to Screen, and then you can use the hand to move yourself over. I want to give everyone a moment to read the comments that were provided in this area. As you can see, a lot of them are related to Naranja. And if you're having trouble seeing it, please let me know. And Stephanie, I see your hand is up if you want to unmute yourself.
And yeah, my question was really was hoping, Melanie, maybe you could just share, help me, I guess, understand what the thinking is that, as you've organized how the working group is going to approach this process. we're starting with transportation and traffic and moving on later to housing and development. To Janet's point a few minutes ago, I was a little confused when I was reading the homework, because I thought, how can I, appropriately respond to some of these questions when we haven't talked about development, or how much the projection is that housing is going to grow and all that. I mean, it makes it pretty hard to know whether what we have is adequate or whether it's not. That's all. So I thought maybe you could just share what the thinking was in that regard.
Yeah, sure. So Stephanie, great question. And to your point, it is all interrelated. It's transportation, housing, and development. With regards to if we know if streets need to be widened or connectivity, there just might be existing based on existing conditions, ones that need to be looked at, or and we'll also continue this conversation when we look at development and we look at what's left in Oro Valley. And so this is why, even though we're talking about it tonight and this month, we probably will touch on it during the housing conversation as well as during the development conversation. But right now, it's kind of focused on, are there currently any known areas based on our current status that either areas need to be widened or more connectivity needs to be had?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. So is there anybody who didn't have a chance to get their comment online, or just wanted to add something else to this first column? And again, this is the column under the green triangle. And if you'd like to add a comment, please go ahead and unmute yourself and we'll scribe it for you, or you can add it in the chat. Okay. Now, I'll also ask this, does anybody have any questions about these first 7 comments, or any that we want to discuss?
Melanie?
Yes.
I'm wondering if Mr. Kiesler could perhaps speak to Naranja Park and plans for or Naranja Drive and plans for that, and some of these others that are continually cropping up.
Sure. So just Mr. Kiesler, do you want to talk about the plans for Naranja Park and
Naranja Drive? Sorry,
Naranja Drive.
or Naranja Drive? Yes.
Sure. Thank you, Vice Mayor, Ms. Sims. As you know, we received a federal grant a bit ago, and we're working through the process, because it is a federal grant, of finishing the design to put a new MUP along the north side of Naranja from La Cañada all the way over to First. And what that would do is create a complete connectivity of MUP and sidewalk from essentially Ironwood High School all the way over to First Avenue. And then, of course, we have the sidewalks along First Avenue. So it really fills in a very large gap. And of course, it drops you off right at the park. And then there's an MUP that goes into the park from there. So it's a major improvement for our pedestrian connectivity. And again, the draw from a regional park, safe access for our kids and whatnot, to get back and forth from the park itself. Because there's a lot of good draws for, not just, small children, but, children of all ages.
What is an MUP?
Oh, sorry if I use jargon here. MUP is a multi-use path. So it's a path where you can walk, you can run, you can ride a bicycle on. Now there are rules of use, like the folks you see road riders out on the street. That's not really a great venue for them, because you need to keep your speed slow. More for the family use or the recreation use, or the kids.
Hey, Paul, this is Bayer. If I could throw into another important distinction, is that it's separate and adjacent to the road.
Right.
So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so again, we're looking at the ones under the triangle, which all of these are centered around widening Naranha Road. And to everybody's point, the comments reflect widening it to allow the multi-use path and bike, and also more bike lane or safety for bikes. But what does the group think? There's a couple comments on here about adding a center lane or widening it to 2 lanes each. Does anybody, Tom?
Yeah, I think the center lane is necessary on Naranha because especially like where the entrance to Copper Creek as an example, the entrance and all of those side streets, people have to drive on the shoulder to get. You're not supposed to do that, but people will drive on the shoulder to get around people that are waiting for a left-hand turn and so on. And I think it would be nice to have a center lane in a lot of those areas.
Right. Anybody else have comments about the Naranha Drive? Please unmute yourself and feel free to speak freely. Stephanie.
Okay, yeah, I live actually just south of, I live northwest in the first northwest development at the corner of Naranha and La Cañada. So I live in the Links, and we live on Scioto, right on the golf course right there. And so our street exits right onto Naranha. It's just the way that it's built right now. If you turn left and you're planning to go up to La Cañada and take a right, at 4 o'clock in particular, the traffic is backed almost, 2/3 of the way back to La Cholla. You can't even get out of our track to make that left turn to get in line because there's the road's not wide enough and there's no right turn lane at the intersection of Naranha and La Cañada to just be able to get over there and make your right turn. So it takes, sometimes three times to get through the light at the peak periods. It really needs to be widened. I think the homes that have gone in on First Avenue, along there north of Palisades, have added a lot of people who are going east at the commute times to get to those homes, and they're using Naranha, and it's too narrow. It needs to be 1 lane wider.
All right, thank you. And Stephanie, I added a comment to try to summarize some of your points, but please let me know if it's not correct.
Okay.
And then Jody, I think you wanted to speak.
Yeah, I would just say on Naranha, typically the traffic is decent between La Cañada and First. It's just missing that center lane for safety so that people can keep moving. That's the biggest problem, is they're distracted and they're not seeing people stop to make those turns in front of them. Because it's going to be nice, but I mean, we can't redo it and redo it again. If we're going to make the use paths, what was your acronym?
Multi-use path.
Yeah, the multi-use path. We've already put all those designs in the works and voted on them, and those are moving forward. And so that would really hinder that project if we were looking at widening all of Naranha. That would be a true challenge. We don't want to redo everything twice.
Yeah. And John?
I think one of the major things is, yes, we need left-hand turn lanes, but we also, to get traffic moving or keep it moving, you have to have right turn lanes also.
Good point. All right, before we move off this category to the next column, I do want to ask the group, looking at the comments, there's now 9 comments under this column. What are a couple words you would use to describe this category that we can use as our descriptor? And you can call out.
Traffic flow on Naranja needs to be studied carefully.
There you go. Traffic flow on Naranja.
Melanie, were you?
I'm trying to make it a little bigger for folks. There we go. Okay. Now we'll head to the next column. This one is more roads in Naranja. You'll see that this group, the comments touch on Shannon and Lambert, Rancho Vistoso and Tangerine and First. Oracle and First is in there a couple times. That's the middle. 10 through 12 is talking about Oracle and First. Moore Road in La Cañada, as well as Thornydale, and then La Cholla between Tangerine and Moore. And then there's a couple more on La Cañada. So everybody take a moment if you want to read through these. And again, if you have any areas to add. So beyond Naranja, are there roads that you think need to be widened or expanded? If you want to type it in the chat or go ahead and mute yourself and we can scribe for you. And we are looking at the category under the 2 arrows, or the double-sided arrow. And it's comments 8 through 16. Yeah, Janet?
Thanks. I can't emphasize exclamation points on Gail's comment, because that intersection at Oracle and First is horrible. And even as you're approaching it, how everybody stays in the left lane and then cuts each other off so that they can turn right at Oracle. That really needs to be studied, I think. And then not only that, but you've got the right turn on the right lane to Oracle, but then you have 3 entrances to the shopping center right there that really screws everything up. So I think that's a huge, significant area to be studied.
I agree, Janet. That's a mess, and we really need to look at that hard.
Okay, so maybe may I ask a question? So the Oracle and First, is it more the people then trying to turn right and they're getting, they're turning right into Fry's or right onto Oracle? When you say it's a mess, Jody?
Well, I would say that 90% of the people traveling east on First toward Oracle are going to turn right at the early parts of the day, typically, but most parts of the day. Not many people go straight, but there is some housing and businesses going straight. But that one is used the least. And then we have 2 left-hand turn lanes going north on Oracle. But yeah, that is a real challenge for those right-hand turn lanes and everybody starting and stopping, and it does get ugly in the morning.
Please, if you want to speak, you don't have to wait for me to call on you. Please feel free.
Okay, I was just going to reiterate, this is Gail Lopez, reiterate the intersection again at Oracle and First. What happens is that if you really want to make a right-hand turn in Oracle, you should be in the right-hand lane at the stoplight at Fry's. But if you do that, sometimes you have to wait several light cycles to get to Oracle. It's crazy. It just doesn't make sense. And I can't believe there's not more accidents, because I am one of those aggressive drivers who don't wait and pass people on the left. So there you have it.
And you actually have to get in the right-hand turn lane before the signal at Fry's. It's right there where that first entrance into the back parking lot of Fry's. Otherwise, you're challenged to ever get into it until you speed up and cut people off right before Oracle.
I think the
stand
majority
there.
of the-
Sorry, one moment. Cheryl, if you want to speak, and then Tom.
I just wanted to say, if you actually sit over on the other side of the road and observe that, what you'll find is the traffic will back up as far as the bridge, trying to go, east on First. And it comes in clumps. So apparently, it would seem to me that if something was done with the staggering of the lights to keep the traffic flow going, that might dissipate a bit.
And then Tom?
Yeah, I was just going to say that the majority of the people who are approaching Oracle Road and want to turn south are not interested in getting into Rooney Ranch. They want to go even beyond Push View. They want to go south toward the city. So it would be great if we could separate the traffic that wants to get out of Oro Valley, if you will, from the traffic that's trying to go into all of those into the shopping plaza. I don't know how that could be done unless there was some way you could bypass, go behind Rooney Ranch, if you will, and come out on Oracle Road somewhere south. That would eliminate a lot of the conflict that there is right now.
Malini?
Yes.
I wanted to add a comment that I think the intersection of Push View and Oracle is similar. The turn lanes or the lanes are similarly confusing. And anyway, I think that's a very similar situation to be looked at.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say you could take the little Push View loop over to get onto Push View, but or the Lambert, whatever that is that cuts across there. But then you come out to the intersection of Push View and First, and I think when they wanted to build some housing across the street from there, that was already an intersection that didn't have a very high level of service. So that's not even an option either.
And
from what I read in the paper, or from what I read, there's a lot of accidents at Push View and Oracle. And it would be interesting to know if there's a commonality with those accidents. Because just like the one from First onto Oracle, I think it's a really similar situation with the lanes and who's turning where.
Okay.
No, I agree with those comments. Those two intersections are very similar because you're going east and you have all these other places that you can make a right-hand turn before you get to Oracle. And that's jams up the traffic sometime. And then you always got that person who's scooting way ahead already on the left, trying to cut in front of those who are already in the right-hand turn lane. I don't know what the solution is though. And it's not all day.
Yeah, and right now, we're definitely don't expect anybody to have the solutions. We're just getting ideas. I do want to respond to Randy. You have a comment asking how many, if we have data for OVPD on accidents at First and Oracle. So for 2024, there were 14 traffic collisions on Oracle and First.
And those were reported, those are just reported accidents, right? There could be some minor fender benders that the police never show up to, I would assume.
Yeah, those are from OVPD, so it would be what was known to them, correct?
Okay. And then one other question, since the Department of Transportation has responsibility for Oracle, who is there a joint responsibility for First and Oracle or Push View and Oracle? Or is that simply on Department of Transportation or is it Town of Oro Valley?
Sure. So I'll ask Paul if he can provide more information on responsibility.
That's a great question. And the entire intersection itself on Oracle is under the purview of ADOT, under the state. But we do coordinate with them and we can work with them. And we're noting all of these issues as well. So their solutions might be in one area and might not be in others, but certainly part of the plan is to that you can specify here is we can work with ADOT and see what improvements could be done.
But a lot of it,
Thanks, Paul.
a lot of this, when we were talking about the multi-use paths, and now we're talking about roads, is basic impoliteness, people not paying attention to people that are around them. And those aren't things that we can control. It's the culture of driving has gotten very rude in the past few years.
Malini, can I jump in for a second?
Absolutely.
I just want to make two comments. One, I think the challenges with First and Oracle are part of why the council saw challenges with adding another light so close to First and Tangerine, because part of it is because you have those two lights right next to each other, and it's difficult to synchronize them, whether you're going straight or turning left, etc. So I think they're just too close, but I'm not sure what we can do about that other than just be aware of it. And then second, I do think that we have probably the most accidents kind of down by Oracle and McGee. Am I wrong about that? Do you have the
Yeah,
the
so that
data?
is correct. Oracle and McGee had 24 collisions in 2024.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if there's anything structurally that can be done there, but I feel like if there is, then that's an area where we have seen the most accidents and even fatalities.
Okay,
It's like there no longer are any rules of the road.
Thank you, Tony. I got your comment. Thank you. And I will add Oracle and McGee to this list as well. Tom or Sandy, and then Tom, if you want to.
Well, I do have a question as a follow-up to the number of accidents at Oracle and McGee. I'm curious what the difference in traffic volume through there is. So as to how that compares with the percentage. So that'd be a great data follow-up. And I know we're not looking for solutions right now. I was just looking at the map online as well and wondering if, because not much traffic does go straight through there, if maybe that middle turn lane that is straight only could become a right turn and then straight could be with the left. Just a thought.
Yep, I'll get that down. And you're absolutely right with regard to taking into context the amount of volume versus not just looking solely at the amount of accidents. And so we can definitely get that information for this group. Tom.
I was just going to say, ask a question of Paul. Is there a possibility that Oro Valley could take over ownership of Oracle Road in the town of Oro Valley? Didn't something like that happen to Tangerine?
Yes, Tom, we did acquire Tangerine from ADOT. Acquiring Oracle from ADOT, there'd be a lot of coordination there. I'm not saying it couldn't be done, but this would certainly be a council decision, be a large burden as far as maintenance goes that's currently paid for by the state. And again, if this is part of the plan and where the citizens want to go, it's certainly a conversation we can have with the council.
I just remember, speaking of maintenance, that intersection, Oracle Road at those intersections was terrible for the longest time.
It was.
It was certainly not meet our standards by any stretch. And there's a lot of complaints about the light coordination, synchronization of the lights and so on and so forth, especially the ones that we have ownership of, like at Rooney Ranch versus what's going on at Oracle. I mean, all of those things would be straightened out if we could take ownership of that section of Oracle Road.
Malini, may I hop in a little bit?
Yes.
Thanks. Hey, Tom.
Howdy.
I just wanted to share perhaps a statewide perspective as far as at least my understanding of how ADOT approaches communities that are growing like Oro Valley. When they have a state highway that's going through a community, they're in the business of state highways moving lots of traffic. And as areas suburbanize, urbanize with traffic lights, shopping centers, and the speeds drop, ADOT generally would be thrilled to be able to let a community take it over as it's moving away from what folks normally think of as a state highway. It's becoming more of a city street in terms of its look, feel, and speeds. But Paul's absolutely right. I mean, that's there are a lot of factors in that decision, and cost is king. And so those are things that would have to be studied. But if I had a crystal ball going beyond my time, 50 years from now, someday over the rainbow, that's going to become a town street, is my own just thought. Someday in the future. And ADOT would like to see that happen, I would think, in time.
So we're talking from Ina to Rancho Vistoso Boulevard. Is that kind of the parameters?
Who knows? Who
Right.
knows? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge stretch of roadway. It's a scary proposition.
From a cost perspective, it certainly is.
Yeah.
Well, the other difficulty here is that it's not just the town of Oro Valley. So if ADOT were to give a section to the town of Oro Valley, you have downstream from that too, that you'd have to work with Pima County, City of Tucson. It would be a monumental coordination effort in which you would have to have the buy-in from other jurisdictions as well, I would imagine. So never say never. And certainly, you know, if this is where, again, the citizens of the town want to go, it's something that can be explored. I don't know what the outcome would be right now.
I want to go to David, Mark, and then McKenna.
Thank you, Melanie. There are obviously those that know a lot more about traffic management than I do, but when I'm traveling on a freeway, I really appreciate the pavement markings that are well ahead of an exit or an entrance, but mostly an exit on a freeway. I'm wondering if there might be pavement markings that would occur well north of the intersection of Oracle and First that might help people plan better for their lane movements, depending on what they want to do.
Got that idea on the board. I think Mark was next.
Summarizing this area, I think that we need some real traffic expertise to look at the flow at major intersections.
Okay. And are you thinking periodically, or is this just universal that we're ongoing looking at it, or what are your thoughts in terms of
Well, a number
developments come in?
of people here have suggested that there are some intersections that are both dangerous and way too busy. I would think that certainly looking at additional lanes, but as well, synchronization of traffic lights could conceivably help that a great deal.
And then McKenna?
Yeah, I'm curious, do we have information as to, like we mentioned that Oracle and McGee is the intersection with the most accidents. Do we have information to say whether it's accidents from people coming from Oracle or coming from McGee? Like something that Oro Valley, because if the accidents are coming from McGee, then maybe it's something Oro Valley could affect, right? Versus if it's on Oracle. Do we have that information, or is it just generally like at that intersection is what we know?
So I do not have that information right now. I will say, and I not to add meetings to anybody, we'll follow up with this group with that information. I am writing it down, but also we will be talking about traffic safety as well next Thursday for the safety group. So you all are also welcome to attend that meeting as well. Again, I don't want to add meetings to people's schedule. I know you all are busy, so we'll still follow up with this group, but we'll also be talking about traffic safety with OVPD in the room next Thursday at 5:30.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, just trying to, I was like, wow, we're talking about all these oracles, trying to think like, well, is there a way we could still talk about like, yeah, that widening, or if need be, you know, making adjustments if we knew that they were the streets we had control over versus not, kind of a thing. So that's great context. Thank you, Malini.
Yep. Okay, and before, so let's see. Andrew, I think you're
I've relocated here from Chicago, and we have a very similar
condition in Chicago are Lakeshore Drive, which runs along Lake Michigan, which runs between 6 and 8 lanes. And we have many arterial streets which are similar to First, turning into it. It's all been handled with street markers, stay in your lane, signs overhead, and strict enforcement till the population learns how to do it. But it's very easy to control 3 lanes of traffic going to the right or going to the left, and having one Siamese lane in the center to go straight. That's all traffic signals and markings. It's a very simple solution if ADOT will allow us to make the appropriate lane markings to control the turns. And it's a very common situation in the Midwest because everything is so old, and as everything got jumbled up and added in higher density, we had to address these things sort of in a less elegant way, but that would certainly solve this issue at first.
Great, thank you, Andrew. So before we move off of this column, great conversation about Oracle and First. I do want to point out there were some other roadways thrown into this column. So if anybody wants to talk about, it looks like First to Tangerine, La Cholla, Moore Road, please raise your hand. And Sandy, I see your hand is raised, or maybe not. Okay. So what would we name the, well, first let me ask, do all these, do you think, oh, Randy, sorry, your hand raised.
Yeah, driving down more, particularly during the construction of Tangerine, there was a lot of traffic through there, and then bicyclists are another issue. They seem to be in the roadway and there's no place for them to go. The shoulders are very rough, if existent at all. So some view of more between La Cañada and Thornydale to widen that out and provide bike lanes, if not turn lanes, similar to what we were talking about with Naranja, I think would be worth studying. And then also La Cholla between Tangerine and Moore. Town did a great job improving La Cholla from Tangerine down towards Tucson. That little stretch between Tangerine and Moore, I think, could use some work as well.
And Randy, are you okay with me adding with bike lanes to both your comments?
Oh, of course I am.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So what is maybe 2 or 3 words to help describe this column?
Major intersection study.
Yep. Okay. Everybody okay with that?
Intersections and thoroughfares, because sometimes it's the road, it's not just the intersection.
Thoroughfares. You guys are gonna test my typing and spelling abilities tonight. All right. Let's see if I can.
Randy, I don't know if you know that the road you're talking about is a county road. It's not Oro Valley. Moore Road, where it changes from 4 lanes down to 2 and becomes kind of a terrible road, that's county there.
Yeah, I realize that. I think maybe what we need to do is engage the county and see if there's a way we can work with them to improve it. But thanks, Tom.
Malini, before we start the next section, do I remember reading something that Oro Valley, without annexing any more land, is at 95% built out?
Yeah, so we are almost built out. You are correct, without annexing. Yeah.
Okay, so I think we all need to keep that in mind as we discuss all these areas, and traffic and flow and all of that, to just remember we are almost built out.
Yeah, so right now we're about at a little around 49,000 people. And what's projected at our build out, if there's not annexations, not rezonings, is about 55,000 people. So we're really close to being built out. David.
You talked about zoning about zoning. And I think we need to realize too, that being at 95% doesn't mean that we couldn't be more dense.
Mhm.
Not all of us on this call, of course, but the city itself.
Sure. Thank you. All right, so this next column, it's under the blank post-it, but these were more general comments, not specific to any roadway, but wanted to kind of get your guys' thoughts on just in general, if you think road widening, you'll see 17 through 26. There's half the comments on the left side are just in general about having all arterials widened, not, John, you brought up earlier, even having right turns if you're gonna have left-hand turns, adding more lanes, and then on the 22 through 25, talk more about just not widening, or if there's widening, making sure that there's still opportunities for walking and biking and pedestrians as well. So I want to give everybody an opportunity to discuss the comments under here. You could take a moment to read them. And then especially if it was your comment and you want to add more context, please feel free to unmute yourself and discuss.
Well, I think number 25 is absolutely correct. Aside from Oracle during commute times, using La Cholla and La Cañada in lieu of Oracle seems to work well during peak times.
Yeah.
Is this the point where we can talk about synchronization of traffic lights?
Sure.
It seems we've got it backwards. The flow in the morning is towards the city of Tucson. Yet if you go down La Cañada, you hit every red light at driving at the speed limit. Every single one. And I drive that every day. And it's the opposite coming home. And it's just insane. You need to have the lights synchronized so that you're going towards the city in the morning and away from the city in the evening. And that to me seems like an easily solvable problem, which would tremendously help traffic flow.
Okay, and I want to, now that we're talking about that, I appreciate the comment. I do want to follow up with Joe's question earlier about the synchronization of lights in La Cañada. So Mr. Kiesler, do you want to talk about that? Is that something the town can control?
Sure. So for La Cañada, thanks, Ms. Sims. We have 4 lights. We have Lambert, the community center, Naranja, and Tangerine. Those are the 4 lights on La Cañada. They are, believe it or not, they are synchronized. Now we only have timing synchronization. They are not hard connected. So if we had a hard fiber connection between, that would increase that functionality, because then they would interact with each other. But right now we have they're hard timed for that synchronization with preference for southbound in the morning and preference with northbound in the evening. Now, as the last speaker just said, I hit every light red. I go through all those lights myself every day, except Tangerine, coming back and forth to the office. It's hit or miss, and what we can do is make that commitment that we will continue to study that and to work on the timing until such time as, let's just say, a fiber company comes through town and we get the opportunity to run fiber between those lights. That would be a game changer.
Okay, and then Tom?
So let me just follow up, Paul. So what you're saying is there time for the speed limit, I guess? Is that what you're saying? And then if traffic gets, increases and people are not able to go the speed limit, then you start getting stuck at each light. Is that kind of what happens?
Well, yeah, they are a balance.
They do account for additional traffic by extending the light.
Right. Well, and they do account for the additional traffic. And what they do is they extend the cycle in the direction that's predominant at the time of day. But again, when it's timed, let's just say there's a certain rush at one point, or as you mentioned, that the traffic's not flowing all at the same speed. You know, you might get a batch of higher speed vehicles, or even you might get a batch of slower speed vehicles. Again, when the lights are just hard time programmed, we're programming them the best that we can, but they're still standalone lights. So it counts on that flow moving evenly, and little disruptions in flow can cause these disruptions with you being able to get through the lights. Again, if we had the opportunity to go ahead and hardwire them, then they start to work off of each other. And then if you, the sensor is better. It just is. And we use all optical sensors.
Okay. And Tom, you had a comment? Oh, if you unmute, yep.
Yeah, comment. First of all, when I first got my driver's license, we were living in Philadelphia. I was like 16 years old, and I used to drive to downtown Philadelphia from 70th and Market down to 12th Street. I could do that without hitting a single traffic light. This is 60 years ago. If you went at the speed limit, which was 30 miles an hour, you could see these lights trip ahead of you as you were going. Every block, they would turn green as you were driving along. So it's surprising that 60 years later, we still haven't figured it out. That's my comment. The one thing I wanted to also point out is that it seems like the way the signals operate, it's kind of counterproductive. If there aren't any cars coming into the intersection, then a single car coming from the other way will trip that light. And so you end up with a cluster of cars at a traffic signal, and there's nothing in front of them. So now when that light turns green, they're going now toward the next intersection, and that intersection doesn't have any activity in it. So the first car that comes across is going to trip that light again. So now you end up getting caught in every stinking light going down the road, which to me is counterproductive.
So there's a maximum time that it can be.
So thank you, Tom. Before we move on, again, these are more the general comments that people had, or they didn't have a suggestion. Is there anyone who wants to talk about any of these more general comments regarding street widening? And if not, and I don't know if we have to name this one, because again, it's kind of just the generalized ones, but we'll move over to the next question if everybody's good with that. Okay. So the next question asked, and it kind of is related to the first question, so some of this may be a little bit repetitive, but it's, are new roads needed to increase connectivity? This first column, we're looking under the blue note with the diamond. It is comments 1 through 5. These are all related to Shannon connecting from Naranja to Tangerine. So does anybody want to discuss this further? Sandy.
Thank you. And Paul, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my understanding is that Oro Valley does own the Shannon Road between Naranja and Tangerine, but just to the other side of Shannon Road, the west side?
Yeah, so the town limits are actually at Shannon Road. That stretch between Naranja and Tangerine, we own the majority of that right of way. There is still a little bit of that right of way that we're working with the county because it's still in the state's name. We're getting it all transferred, so that's a contiguous and a singular width right of way.
And I see that the RTA has, as they're putting together their next few-year plan, they're looking at extending Shannon from Tangerine down. Now, they must have to work with the town on that. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, the town brought that project to the RTA Next. That was one of our suggested projects. As RTA Next is, as we all got together, as all the jurisdictions got together, looking at where all those regional disconnects are, and that's certainly one of the regional disconnects, you know, for county residents living north of us, Marana residents to the west, and our ability to get out to the freeway as well from the west side of our town. So that was, Oro Valley is the sponsor for that project.
So would we not wait until there was some movement on the Shannon 880?
Well, that's the Shannon 880, of course, I don't know how many people are aware here that that's everything to the west of Shannon between Naranja and Tangerine Estate Land. Since we already have the right of way, we could wait. We were going to wait when we were looking at working with the state land several years ago. But now with the opportunity of the RTA Next funding that, we put that in as a possible project because we don't know when that 880 will ever develop or if it will develop. But if the RTA Next passes through, at least we'll have some finality with regard to opening that up. And just by the way, we're putting a water line through there right now. And with that water line and the clearing that's gone through, we're working on making a temporary opening through there. It'll be low speed, temporary to allow access. And that's underway right now.
Great. Thank you, Paul.
Is it going to be
if we
paid?
could, sorry. I just want to get us a little bit back on track. I appreciate all the questions. We could definitely dive more into what goes into expanding Shannon Road to Tangerine, but more at a higher, I guess, at a more macro level. Do we want to move, or does anybody want to help name this category? Again, all of these are related to Shannon Road, or is there any other? Most of them look like it seems like a positive move, but are there any ones that people want to expand on further? Or if anybody wants to try to name this one.
We could just name it Expanding Shannon to Tangerine.
There we go. All right, the next list is, and again, happy to talk more about specifics on what that will look like at a later time. Looking at the next column, these ones were kind of, again, similar to last time we started with Naranja, they went to other roads. This started with Shannon on this one, then some people had other comments. So Linda Vista being one for better connectivity, just in general, more north-south roads to help alleviate traffic from Oracle. Another one about having more roads from Oracle, better access to I-10, and then more access off Shannon between Naranja and Tangerine. Anybody have anything to add on this one? I'll give you a couple more minutes to read them, or if you have any you want to discuss in this column. I'm not seeing anything. And then for anybody to discuss, does anybody want to try naming this one?
Miscellaneous.
Or is there any ones that don't fit in this column? We have a couple that are talking about more of our major arterials. Again, there's the access to I-10.
Malini?
Yes.
Maybe this is kind of coming up because it talks about in the future about La Cholla, but in terms of access to I-10 and alternatives to Oracle Road and La Cañada, and then this issue of La Cholla was widened to relieve La Cañada traffic congestion, but that didn't seem to work. I would agree with that. I think La Cañada has gotten busier and busier, and La Cholla not as much. And I think one of the reasons to that is that it doesn't feel like La Cholla has very good access to I-10.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's anything that, and for a lot of places for me that I drive, if I drove over to ride on La Cholla, I would be going west and then south and then east, right? Or to have to get back on to the freeway or to another location in the east. So then that tends to keep the traffic onto La Cañada and Oracle. So I don't know if there's a way, I know it's outside of Oro Valley's boundaries, but just to address this north-south, what limited roads we have that move north-south, I don't know if there's a way to look at trying to enhance La Cholla so that it becomes more convenient for people to use it in terms of where it's going. You know, does it have access to I-10? Does it get bogged down in the area kind of near Orange Grove and the Foothills Mall or something compared to, say, La Cañada or Oracle?
Vice Mayor Barrett, this is Kim. I use La Cholla every day and I love it.
To get on the freeway?
Well, I'm going southbound, but yeah, I actually avoid Oracle and La Cañada in order to use La Cholla. And don't tell anybody, that's my secret. So you guys like keep it
Yeah. So what is the way you get onto I-10 from La Cholla that works well?
So
all
Vi-
the way down to Ruthroff.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Vice Mayor Ruthroff is your best bet.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, that's just my sense is also that La Cholla is not getting heavily utilized compared to La Cañada.
Don't tell anybody.
All right. Okay, so Hal, I think your hand's up.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe a good heading for this grouping is maybe suggested connectivity improvements.
Okay, good.
I'd like to also offer too that the town works very closely hand in hand with both our Pima Association of Governments, which is PAG, and the RTA, which is the Regional Transportation Authority. And these regional issues are really, really best suited for that regional partnership. It gives us a chance to work collaboratively with the county, with the city, with ADOT on I-10. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that's another avenue to help with that, again, those regional connections that are beyond the town. And the town stay actively involved with that.
Okay, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. This last column, I think we've talked about some of these with regards to knowing what development patterns will be and improving current roadways if we have sufficient capacity. So is everybody okay moving on to our questions about intersections? Or if there's something more you want to talk about with regards to new roads, please unmute yourself. All right, so let me bring up the next discussion topics. Just one moment. All right, so when it came to intersections and traffic flow, we had two questions here as well. So the first one were, are there areas where roundabouts or alternative design should be explored at intersections? The first column is our diamond column, and these comments were in favor of roundabouts. And then also, and so that I'm going to go through maybe the columns first, and then we'll swing back to get more comments. So the first column was in favor of roundabouts, but also asking if there's measures that can be added to make them more safe and comfortable for folks. The second column, which is our circle column, wanted to know more data. These folks commented on wanting to know what, from a data standpoint, how the alternative designs stand up to signalized intersections. Our cloud column is concern about roundabouts, not having enough information. Also, if it does, the fact that roundabouts may not always work for each intersection. And then our last column in this one from the comments received online is our triangle column, and that is some considerations to make about when thinking about roundabouts, especially with regards to people's knowledge of how to use a roundabout. So that's kind of the four areas, the four categories of comments that we received on this online, but let's circle back to that first one. So does anybody want to, I'll give you a chance to read through it.
I don't see anything past 17. Should I be looking at more?
So Tony, you may have to go to the navigation menu in the lower right-hand screen
Okay.
and choose fit to screen. And then you
Uh-huh.
might have to use the hand to pan over to it
Do rejoin.
or rejoin. Yeah.
Rejoin, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because that is change the page. So this first column is
Okay, thank you.
good. Glad you got it. Is our diamond column, and it is folks who seem to who had positive comments about roundabouts and think they should be considered before four-way stop signs, sometimes before signals. So does anybody want to go ahead and unmute yourself or raise your hand if you want to talk about this, if you have any comments to make on this?
I personally drive through the roundabout going to Canyon Del Oro High School every day. And for me, I have seen both me and my peers, who are all high school students, who are notoriously not great drivers. I feel like we've always talked about roundabouts being kind of safe. And we personally, and granted, a lot of us live near this roundabout, haven't had any issues like with knowledge of how to drive through one and stuff like that. But I feel like it definitely does increase like safety and like the flow of traffic through that area.
Great. Thank you, Leah. Hal?
Yeah, I'm sure Paul's very aware of this, but I just became aware recently of the town of Carmel, Indiana, a suburb of Indianapolis, which over the years has pretty much turned all of its intersections into roundabouts. Very successfully. It levels up the flow of traffic, reduces accidents. So they really have benefits, but in this area, I think their applicability is going to be limited to certain intersections. But I certainly think they should be considered further in certain situations.
Great, thank you. And Sandy?
Oh, I just want to clarify something because the comment of mine, more measures be added for safety and comfort, was really for the pedestrians at that particular roundabout of Moore and La Cañada.
Okay.
Roundabouts are very safe. They're so much safer in general. It's just people still go really fast through there, and there's a lot of pedestrians. So I just didn't know if there were any other measures that could be done for that, for the pedestrians.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying. Do you mind if I add to your comment that people still go fast, so safety for pedestrians? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
And Akmoral? Oh, I think you're muted. There you go.
Yes. So can I add a comment in favor of roundabouts? You know, we do have evidence that they are safe and environmentally good too, and cheaper for the towns, especially mid-sized towns, to maintain. And then I agree with this here with fact-based planning. So yeah, so like really study the intersections where they make the most sense. So.
Okay. And Stephanie?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that my experience with well, I'm from California. We call them traffic circles. My experience with them is that, you know, when you're entering a traffic circle / roundabout, you pretty much have to brake, and then depending on the number of streets that are coming into the roundabout, you have to look at all these different streets and figure out, you know, where everybody is and if anybody's stopping or what are they doing. I'm retired, so I don't have to commute in the mornings, but I can imagine that, you know, that's going to cause on some of the busier streets, that's going to cause a lot of backup on those streets as people stop to try to enter the traffic circle to make sure that they're entering it safely. It seems to me that, you know, if it's a busy area, you know, a traffic signal where the light is green for a while, which keeps traffic flowing, and then, you know, is going to get, at least at rush hour, is going to make things flow a lot better. The rest of the time, it doesn't really matter. But, you know, traffic circles are basically the same as a stop sign. You pretty much, every car has to stop to enter to make sure they're entering safely. That's all.
Yep. Thank you. I'm
That,
getting your,
that's not the case with the Moore in La Cañada traffic circle. Unless it's the busy time of the morning or the afternoon, you almost never have to stop. And you do slow down because there's speed bumps there.
And the right lanes have the right of way all the time. There's no stopping for the right lanes at all because they're separated.
sure. All right, so I have the comment though that in some cases, traffic signals may be better due to how busy the road is. And I heard a lot of comments about studying intersections to see where the fit is. So how could we, if somebody wants to call out, how would you describe this first column that are again more in favor of roundabouts?
Call it roundabouts.
Okay. All right, and now the second column again is more data and being interested, and we can definitely follow up with some of this, but does anybody want to speak on these? We're under the circle and it's number 5 and 6. No, or if Randy or I think it's Mike wanted to discuss further. You an opportunity. Okay, and then moving
I
to
really have nothing to add.
sure. Moving to the cloud, it's this one is where roundabouts are helpful, but not maybe for every intersection. Is there anything else anybody wants to add on this column?
Just that the roundabout on Moore and La Cañada is just done really well. I think the whole planning for that went really well. I've seen a lot of roundabouts, you know, that you just go up to Sedona and you can see a whole bunch of them, one right after the other. And I think the one that we have is well designed, well thought out. There may be some improvements for pedestrians. But I think it's really well done. So but they're not good for every situation. And I think that the study that was done to propose that there was right on. So, you know, rinse and repeat.
Sure.
And I would just say that comment 8, which was maybe goes back under intersections, it's not really about roundabouts. So
Yep, nope, good catch. I'm going to move that over here for now. We will recategorize it. Okay.
Malini.
Yes.
I also like the roundabout at Moore and La Cañada. I'm wondering if there is a way for us to keep it a little bit cleaner. I don't know if other people have also noticed, but it seems like something about the fact that it's turning, the rock and debris kind of flies out, and then it seems hard to street sweep it with the bollards that are there and things. So
That
just for
debris and the tire marks come from large trucks, which have a hard time making that smaller circle.
yeah, maybe it needs just a little more focus on that cleanliness because of that, or maybe future roundabouts. Yeah, that could be considered that small circle. I agree. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay. It's about 7:18. We have about 10 more minutes. So in efforts of time, I'm not going to worry too much about naming these two categories. I do want to move us over to the last question of this one, which we have talked about a little bit, and that is traffic stoplight timing. So this first column focused on, and we're under the yellow circle, comments 1 through 9. Focus mostly on Oracle Road, and then there's in La Cañada, as well as looks like the intersection of Rancho Vistoso and First. So if anybody wants to add anything to this one, if you have any additional comments or context you want to provide, please unmute yourself or raise your hand now. Or if anybody has questions about the timing of Oracle, I know we've touched on this a little bit earlier tonight. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so the next column under this one was the comments we received were synchronizing traffic lights on roads that aren't on Oracle, but also looks like there's some comments about hair trigger lights, as well as level of service. So maybe Tom, do you want to kind of maybe give us a little bit more context of what you mean by hair trigger?
Well, it seems like a single car can trip a light. For example, the Lambert and La Cañada, or Hardy Road and La Cañada. That's why I call it a hair trigger. You know, you can have a lot of flow on La Cañada, and yet the traffic will get stopped because a single car has intercepted that sensor, you know, on that cross traffic. If you went back to the map that showed different, you know, arterial versus collector, blah, 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 blah. Some of those roads, the ones that are used the most, should always have, I'll call it the right of way. Somehow the signal should be sensed such that those roads are primarily open, and a single car or two cars can't cause the traffic signal to trip. That's what I mean by hair trigger.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, are there other comments or clarifications for these responses? We're at 10 through, looks like 16 under the yellow diamond. Or if anybody has any other questions about terms used. Okay, I'm going to go to the last column. This is the last one we'll look at tonight, and this is under the yellow diamond. Oh, that was a triangle before, so now we're under the yellow diamond. This one is, let's see, congestion, not on Oracle and Ina. Not sure if the Michigan left turn is helping. Again, kind of trying to figure out traffic versus development. And then it looks like the congestion at Rancho Vistoso Boulevard, Tangerine and First, and again, some issues with Rancho Vistoso Boulevard, Tangerine and First. That is one area we haven't really discussed tonight. So does anybody want to kind of talk about their concerns or experiences with Rancho Vistoso Boulevard at Tangerine and First? That intersection, that's where the Safeway is. Or especially the person who added the comments.
That wasn't my comment, but I'll say I live right there and I haven't really noticed that there are many issues there.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Sandy.
Hey, Malini, if I could backtrack us just a little bit to the comments on the signal timing for La Cañada. We're gonna try a little something here. We're going to, because they are timed, and what causes the light to turn red for a singular car is after they've reached their maximum timing, they cycle through and a singular car will trip that. But what we're going to try to do, because they're not set this way right now, is we're going to set them at resting green through the rush hours. And I'd appreciate for anybody who travels that way, let me know what you think next time that we get together in 2 weeks. We're gonna get that going here next. We'll be done by then.
What does that mean, Paul, resting green?
So right now, what we have is they're on a resting red.
They're just on the cycle.
Oh, they're on the time cycle. So what I can do is we can put them at a resting green so that it causes the trip causes them to change rather than them timing out.
So maybe, yeah, those of us who drive on La Cañada, we can share if our experience has changed in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's just what I want to say. Yeah, let me know what you think.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to Andrew, then Cheryl, then Tom. So Andrew?
Might we include La Cholla on that experiment as well?
And that helps because
All right. think they're thinking about it. We'll
Yeah,
take that
well,
down though,
well,
Andrew.
no, I can, I'm sorry, everybody. I have some of my team here helping me. I have a phone a friend going on. So, La Cholla is already set at a resting green. Now, we don't have the
Because-
same volumes on La Cholla that we have on La Cañada. So I think let's go ahead, and if you could give me your feedback next time, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, because I drive La Cholla at 7 in the morning and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, both north and south. And it seems that it has you always catch the light at Lambert and the light at Hardy. And it seems that it's triggered by opposite traffic. If there's cars coming the other way,
That's
you could
correct.
only be 1 or 2 cars and you'll still get a green.
Right, that's correct.
But is there any way to make that a little gentler and holding the green?
We'll look at that timing. We will
Yeah.
look at that timing.
I say we'll add the La Cholla timing lights to this too, as well as Andrew.
Thank you
We
very
have
much.
just enough time for me the last 2 comments. So Cheryl.
Thank you.
Paul, thanks for circling back to that, because I always get stopped at the light coming out of the community center. And there's never anyone coming out or coming out of the apartments on the other side. Now, I'm not traveling during rush hour. It's off times, but that happens to me almost every time I go down La Cañada.
I'm sorry for that. Yeah, that's one that you're getting timed out when that happens. So the resting green will probably help that by quite a bit.
Okay, that would be
So it
great.
looks like we'll try to alleviate some of the issues on La Cañada before the next meeting. Real change happening from your guys' comments. And Tom, if you want to wrap us up.
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back to Tangerine and Rancho Vistoso. As a bicycle rider, it's scary if you're going north on First, which then becomes Rancho Vistoso. The so-called bike lane skinnies down to about 18 inches, and you've got these cars whizzing past you coming off of that intersection, and many of them want to turn right into that Safeway Plaza, and it scares me to death. I don't know if there's any way we can address that.
I've added that on the list. And that's actually a good segue. So again, my commitment to all of you is to always end the meetings on time. We respect your time. We did get through a lot tonight, though. That was a lot of great discussion, a lot of great comments. And we will continue this discussion in 2 weeks. We'll really focus on pedestrian and cyclist safety. So that was a great kind of segue into that. Roadway maintenance and public transportation. I do want to say, though, because there's such great conversation, and this is definitely a topic that has so many aspects to it, we will need to plan a 3rd meeting to talk about transportation. So what that means is we'll have another meeting probably in March to kind of finish this off, because we do want to make sure, again, that we're getting all of your comments and having time to come back to you all to talk about the results of this effort and the goals, policies, and actions. So I will be sending out an email with some potential times. We want to make sure as many folks are available to stay with this conversation. So before we head off, if there's any more last-minute comments or questions about the process or using Zoom, I'm happy to answer them if you want to unmute or raise your hand.
No, thank you, Melanie, for your facilitation.
Yeah. And
Great
I
work.
will
Thank you.
say that especially for you're welcome. Thank you. I do want to say, though, for the meeting in 2 weeks, like I said, we're still going to be talking about pedestrian safety, road maintenance, as well as public transportation. So if you did not answer the online questions to those, I'm going to reopen them. Please make sure to get your responses on there, because that will also help us get through these a little bit quicker. So if you didn't, you still have time. All right. So with that, it's 7:30 and we'll go ahead and close the meeting. Thanks all.